What are the 7 car insurance myths that are costing people thousands? Today we're going to talk about what actually matters in car insurance, but also what are the things you thought mattered. The first one is that full coverage covers everything, and that's not true. You're going to hear me say on this channel full coverage a lot, and you're going to see comments in there like, you're not talking about, because there's pieces that it's missing. Liability, comprehensive, and collision is typically at least thought of the name full coverage. And to be honest with you, full coverage is a made up word. But because everyone thinks that full coverage is having all of the pieces, that is the majority of words that you're going to hear from any agent, even me, to someone on the phone. Typically, you're going to hear insurance agents say that all the time. So be careful, because full coverage doesn't mean you have good coverage. Liability is the most important part, apart from your car. I know people love their car so much, but if you're getting in a lawsuit because you injured someone, you want to make sure you have the right liability. That's how much your insurance will pay if that person gets injured. Having $10,000 is not enough. Having $20,000 in most cases, having $100,000 even in today's age is probably not enough. Most people carry $250,000 depending on the state, because that does cost a lot in some states and cost a little in other states. That's why having a local independent agent is worth working with. Someone that can give you advice and at least go over those pieces. You look at your policy and say, what do I have for liability coverage? Then what do I have for my deductible for comprehensive? Can be 0, can be 50, can be 100, can be 1,000. It depends on what you want to pay for repairing your vehicle if there's a comprehensive claim. If the windshield cracks, if you hit an animal, things like that. Then you've got collision. But the pieces that you're not thinking of is, do I have gap insurance? Do I have rental car coverage? Do I have road service? That's not considered full coverage as an option. Now, most agents are going to say full coverage and list all of those things, but be careful, because there are agents that won't list those and they'll just say that you have full coverage. Yeah, but Mark, why don't they term that? It's one of those things that it just happened. People started saying the term and it's always been, and it's always stuck. Just know that can cost you hundreds of thousands if you have the wrong policy. So if the policy's too cheap, ask what kind of coverages they're offering, and then maybe get a second opinion if you don't trust the agent that you're working with. The second one is your credit score doesn't affect your insurance. Technically and legally, a credit score doesn't directly affect your insurance. There's something called an insurance score. And yes, your credit score plays the biggest factor of the insurance score. Kind of a way that the insurance has been able to rate against credit, because that does matter. They just figured out we're a company, and if bad credit and they don't pay bills, or someone is likely going to skip out or have a rough time, and we're not going to be the ones that are be helpful, or there's a lot of fraud tied to it. There's a lot of reasons insurance companies don't like credit being too low, that to where they don't give as good of a discount. But that's not all they factor in. They're factoring your claims history, all of the tickets that you've had, your insurance history, how many times have you had cancellations. They're looking at your most recent pull of credit, because they're not going to actually draw your credit and pull a hard hit, and they're going to do just a basic search. That's one of the reasons they don't use credit directly, is they're using the most recent score, not pulling a new score for your credit insurance score. Now that plays a huge factor in the cost of your insurance, so make sure that you have the best credit you can get. Obviously, no claims, no tickets, then you're good. You're probably going to have the best insurance score as you can get. I'll link a video at the end that goes more in depth on exactly those parts. How much is credit, how much is claims, how much is all of those pieces. That will go over a little bit more in depth if you're interested in finding out more about how your insurance score is calculated. The third is red cars cost more than blue cars. And that's not exactly true, although technically, most red cars are sports cars, at least the majority of them, since that has been an old wives' tale. That was because there was sports cars and they were red or yellow. You had the Corvette, and those were the two most common colors. Yeah, that's going to cost you more because you bought a Corvette, not because of the color. Now, there is a few incidences where the paint does matter as far as the rebuild of your car. If you're buying a nice Cadillac with the flakes, the metal flakes in the paint, then that's going to be an extra charge, because as part of the increase of cost of purchasing the vehicle, it's going to be an increase in cost on repairing the vehicle. Number 4, minimum state coverage is enough. We kind of talked about that in the first place, where you got to have certain levels of coverage, and it has to match what you can afford. What you can pay for the insurance to get the most coverage, that's where that independent agent's going to work with you to find the best company that is the best fit. They take that insurance score, they take your car, they take your location, they take what you're looking to pay, all of those things that create what I call a profile, and they shop it with different companies. So they go to Nationwide and say, okay, here's who this person is. Do you like it? Yes, no. They go to Progressive, they might go to Geico, all of those different companies that offer different rates. They're able to shop them across the board, which doesn't cost you anything. So that's an option, is to go with an independent agent. If you are looking for a new policy, I'll put a link in the description below where you can do a quote with most of those independent agents. That way you don't have to do 100 phone calls. You can talk to one person, get the quote tons of companies, and then maybe you find the better fit that's a fit for you. Number 5, insurance follows the driver, not the car. And that kind of 50-50. So insurance can follow the driver, but more often than not, it follows the vehicle. So it depends on the situation. There are scenarios where I've seen both happen, but if you lent your car to someone else and they went and had an accident, your insurance is going to pay for the repair on the car. That's why you purchased insurance. You have something that's called permissible use, and you're allowing them or permitting them to use your vehicle. If your insurance company allows it, which 99% of them do, and it's not a regular driver, so they're going to have that permissible use that your insurance policy is going to carry over with your vehicle. Now, if you're in an accident in some states, let's say Michigan, for example, and you get injured in a car accident, more often than not, your medical, your personal injury protection is going to kick in and pay that claim. It can go both ways. I've seen insurance deny it. It's just what they do. And they say, no, we're not going to cover it. The other one picks it up for some reason when they weren't supposed to, and it's just paid that way. The nice part about having the right insurance company is they don't ask 100 million questions. They just want to get you happy and back to whole as much as possible. Other scenarios, they say, no, you're supposed to pay it. And 99% of the time it works out. Sometimes it's a headache on your end. You got to deal with the talking back and forth, and you're technically the manager of the claim, and you got to figure all these pieces out. So that's one of the downfalls of having insurance, is there's not really a right or wrong answer there, but most of the time, insurance is going to follow the vehicle. Number 6, older cars don't need comprehensive and collision. And that's not necessarily true. Could cost you several $100s. If you have a claim. Here's what you should know. If you, this is all about you, not the car. If you cannot pay for that car and purchase a new vehicle or a replacement vehicle and it's not affordable, then you should have comprehensive and collision. In case there is an accident, you want to pay your deductible. Let's say it's a $500 bill. Hand it to them, they repair the car or they replace the car or give you the $5,000 that your car's worth, whatever the value is at the time of the claim, then you're covered to that level. If you have the funds and you say, well, I got $5,000 in the bank, I'd hate it, but if I crashed my car tomorrow, I could go buy the same car again. Then if it's an older vehicle, it might not make sense to pay an extra $50, $60, $80, $100, whatever the cost it is additional per month that you're paying to have the comprehensive and collision, then it might not make sense for you to carry it because it's not going to affect you financially. Insurance is there to make you whole when you need it. And if you don't need to have those coverages, then there's not a reason to pay for it. Don't get me wrong, if you're myself, I am a little bit of a worrywart, and I do want to make sure that I don't pay anything out of pocket that I don't have to. And I do know that it's less likely that I'm going to have a claim because I've almost never, well, I've had maybe 2 claims. So I've had a couple claims, but they've been minor. And there's a low risk of me actually having to lose that, but I don't want to. I'd rather pay the extra $50 a month myself to know that I'm covered to a point. Once I get to a certain age, when the vehicle is not really worth more than a few $1,000s, then yes, I'll take the comprehensive and collision off, and then I'll just risk it. I'll save some of that money to purchase a new vehicle because I'm probably already looking anyways. Number 7 is a small claim is always worth it. Depends on the state you live in, depends on the insurance company you're with, and depends on what you're thinking of doing in the future. Let me give you an example of why I said that. So some states have claims that always go against you. Texas is one of those not fault or whatever fault states you want to call it, where if you have a claim, doesn't matter if it's comprehensive, collision, whatever the case is, it counts against your insurance. So when you have a minor claim, if they pay out $300 and you get a crack fixed on your windshield, that might cost you $600 over the course of several years because they're going to increase your rate because of having that claim. Other states don't care at all. If you have a comprehensive claim, they're not allowed to raise the rates on you so that you don't have the increase at all. In those states, it doesn't make sense, but here's where it matters with the companies, because companies can restrict the cost of a new customer joining. A really good example is if in a few years you know that you're going to switch to a higher rated company. I'm with Progressive now, but I want to be with Nationwide, or I want to be with Safeco in a few years because they're likely going to have a better fit. I'm going to buy a house. It just seems like a good option. If I have comprehensive claims, even though they don't go against me with my current carrier, when I go to shop and go to a different company, they may rate that comprehensive claim against me. It doesn't mean all companies are going to do that. That's where your agent's going to help you work through those pieces and understand like which companies are the better fit, because that is one of the major pieces. If you have multiple small claims, doesn't matter. Some companies care about the number of claims that you have. When you have 5, 6, 3, 4, some of those companies say, no, we won't even insure someone that has 5 claims. Doesn't matter if you got your car jump-started twice, you had it towed once, you had a not at fault accident, and then maybe a ticket. Those 5 claims, you're no longer even optional to go to that carrier. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, the agent can argue that part and say, this was why, here's what we're doing. And if it's a good fit, they can sometimes work on your behalf to get you into those companies that aren't always a great fit. Those are the main pieces that you're going to see people struggle with, where those myths are going to say, do it this way. It's not always the case. It always helps to get advice from someone that is knowledgeable in the industry. If your buddy down the road knows insurance, go ask him, as long as he's knowledgeable. If you want to work with a local agent, I put that link in the description below. If you want to learn more about that specific piece, we're talking the bigger piece of all of this is that credit score. I'm going to put the video for the credit, how to understand that. The other larger piece of this is going to be what kind of coverages you carry. My Car Insurance 101 is going to go a lot more in depth. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.